This year, Korn, Rammstein, Tool, and Slipknot have all released new albums. All you need is Limp Bizkit in the mix, and you basically have my playlist from middle school. 20 years ago, these bands were at their creative peaks and arguably the height of their popularity. But I don't think anybody will argue that in the past few years, the output from these bands has been not so inspiring or just non-existent. Tool and Rammstein haven't put out a new album in over 10 years, and Korn and Slipknot's last albums were both disappointing. So when I heard that all four of these bands were coming together to release new albums this year, I just had to do a video on it. And now that the albums are out, I'm going to go through and rank and review each and every one of these albums and see which ones have fared the best and which ones were the most disappointing of the four nu metal juggernauts. And I know some of you are saying Tool is not nu metal. I pretty much agree with you, but they're always grouped in with these other bands, so fuck it. You're watching Dancing with Ghosts.
Rammstein was the first band this year to drop their new album Untitled. This album dropped on May 17th, 2019 and was preceded by one epic-ass music video. The music video for Deutschland felt like an extended trailer for one of the most epic movies the world will ever see. Seriously, how are you gonna tease me with this video and not make a full-length film afterward? Rammstein have always been known for their visuals, whether on stage or on screen, and with this album, it brought a slew of new fantastic music videos for us to feast our eyes on. Oh yeah, not to mention the music.
The songs on this album all have that crystal clear studio sheen that all Rammstein music is known for. The music is heavy and powerful with that German lockstep rhythm that you've come to expect. The keyboards and electronic elements are featured much more heavily on this album, which is always a good thing in my book. There are chilling atmospheric choirs and staccato bombastic guitars at every turn. The vocals are not shy on hooks either. Nearly every song has some kind of memorable hook that will make you want to go back and re-listen, which is always something I look for in the music that I enjoy.
There are really only a few songs on this album that I don't care for, mainly the track Sex. It just doesn't sound all that inspired, just kind of lackluster compared to the other songs. This is a solid release, but stays inside the lines for the most part. Rammstein have their sound dialed in, and obviously they do not want to change that. Slipknot's last album, The Grey Chapters, wasn't very well received by many Slipknot fans, although I felt it had one of their most groove-oriented songs I've ever heard on there called Kill Pop. Overall, though, I understood the fans' point of view.
We Are Not Your Kind dropped on August 9th, 2019, and to me this album blends the best of new Slipknot with the classic Slipknot sounds. Of course, you're still going to get the spastic blast beat drums and the guitar sludge, but you also get more textured keyboard sounds, samples, and most importantly, vocal hooks. Hooks are not a bad thing, folks. They keep people coming back and wanting to listen to the song. And Slipknot definitely did not avoid those on this album. Some of my favorite tracks off this album would be Birth of the Cruel, Nero Forte, and Spiders. There are also some smaller musical interstitials between the main songs that don't really sound all that good, and they don't add anything to the album except just bloating out the track length.
Overall, this record is much better than Slipknot's previous release, and there are a handful of songs off here that I do genuinely enjoy. My only critique is that the album wasn't a huge surprise musically. I mean, it's Slipknot. It's pretty much what you would expect, despite Corey Taylor saying this was, quote, going to be their most experimental album yet, end quote. Yeah, I'm not hearing all that much experimentation on here, Corey. Probably the most anticipated release of 2019 for metal fans was Tool's Fear Inoculum. This album dropped August 30th and would be the first new Tool album in 13 fucking years. The balls on these guys. How nice it must have been to only release an album every decade. I joke, of course, because before this album, Tool's output was more like a new album every half a decade. So what was the general consensus on Tool's brand new album in 13 years?
It's bland. It's a bland album. I know it. You know it. It sucks, but it is what it is. All of these songs, even the little awful musical interstitials between the main songs, they're all these long-winded jam sessions that go nowhere. And yes, I know that Tool has been known to have these long musical passages in the past, but back then they all were building up and crescendoing into something beautiful and awesome. Not these songs. There's no payoff on these songs. You'll be listening to the song for 10 minutes waiting for that hook, for that musical payoff, and it never comes. I don't know how Maynard took so goddamn long to record vocals on this album because he barely even sings on it. These all sound like jam sessions taken straight out of the Lateralis era, but not nearly as good. I have tried giving this album a chance, but I just can't. I've listened to it about 10 times trying to find that aha moment, trying to find that, oh, this is why Tool's great. Now I'm getting it, but it just hasn't happened yet. And I guarantee you, if this band tours this album, anytime they play a cut from Fear Inoculum, that's when the entire audience is going to collectively take a bathroom break or go get a beer. Mark my words.
The final new metal album released this year was Korn's The Nothing, which came out September 13th, 2019.
This album didn't really do anything for me. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 good, like genuinely good songs on here, but the rest of the songs are pretty bad. I just can't really vibe with Korn anymore. I think I've completely grown out of that style of music. You got Jonathan Davis, who is a guy who's pushing 50, and he's still whining about not being okay and endless nightmares and feeling cold inside and I'm gonna break it down. It's like, really, dude? You're really still like not okay? Like you're really still having the same kind of, you know, emotional issues that a teenager might have? Can't you buy some therapy or something with all the money you've made, or buy a puppy? Or have you ever tried ice cream? Ice cream's the shit. But anyway, aside from the tired Korn, I'm not okay, depressed platitudes, and the still stuck in middle school lyrics, the chord structures feel very formulaic on this album. It's a very pop album at its basic elements, and it feels like it's deliberately aimed at a mainstream audience, and I can smell it a mile away. This is not the same kind of experimental Korn that you heard in the 90s when they were essentially inventing a new genre of music. I don't know what happened, but after their album Issues, Korn really started to suck in my opinion. Alright, so if I were to rank these albums, the number 1 spot would have to go to Rammstein for just having the largest amount of songs that I actually enjoyed on their album with hooks that keep me coming back. The number 2 spot would go to Slipknot for bringing back that classic Slipknot sound, but not straying away from a great melodic sensibility. Number 3 would go to Korn, and even though I didn't like most of the album, there were 2 or 3 genuinely good songs on that album, which is not something I can say for number 4, which is Tool's Fear Inoculum. I know, it's Tool, therefore I'm supposed to automatically like it and drink its bathwater, but I'm sorry guys, I'm objective, and if you're going to make your fans wait 13 years to release mediocrity, I'm not going to stand behind it, sorry. Alright, so one thing that has to be mentioned here, with this genre of music known as nu metal or whatever you want to call it, there are certain parameters that each one of these bands kind of fits into to keep their audiences happy. But with that being said, one of the overall aspects that affected each one of these new albums negatively was an overall lack of originality and creativity. Now, these bands have been around for 20 years. Their best work is behind them. So what they do is they just make music that is going to continue to pacify the fans they currently have, because I think a lot of times, especially with older bands, they realize they're not going to draw in a lot of new listeners, so they want to just make the listeners they already have happy. And for me, I don't want to just be pacified. I want to be constantly challenged by the artists that I love. Some of my absolute favorite bands were bands that every single album sounded different. But that's just me. What did you think? Which one of these 4 albums, well, not these 4, these are my 4 favorite albums by these bands I talked about tonight, except I actually didn't have Slipknot's first album, or else that would have been there. This was the oldest one of their albums that I had. But anyway, what's your favorite of these 4 new albums? Was it Rammstein's Untitled? Was it Korn's The Nothing? Was it Slipknot's We Are Not Your Kind? Or was it Tool's Fear Inoculum? Let me know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching, and I'm so sorry that I didn't love the new Tool album. Just gotta be real with you guys. My name's Josh Cannon. Hope you have a good rest of your night.